it's definitely getting boring now. I feel like I want to just go out and shoot stuff, and I just know it's going to be a while, and what can you do? So last week I asked a question on social for sort of just general Q&As for creativity and business and photography and stuff, and a bunch of people answered on Twitter and on Instagram. So I thought I'd kind of share a bit of knowledge because that's the kind of person I am. Okay, so I got asked advice for a young teenage photographer looking to go pro. Just keep shooting. The more you shoot, the better you get. The better you get, the better photos you get. The better photos you get, and the more you shoot, the more people you meet. And once you start meeting more people and engaging with those people, the more work kind of comes your way. Another thing I'd say for young people, or just anyone wanting to go pro really, is be really focused, like be really, really clear on what it is that you want to shoot. So don't just say you want to be a professional photographer, because that's really vague, it's really wide, it's really open. It's going to be really easy for you to get lost in the mix. Be a bit specialised, be a bit niche, and actually get a lot further. Most challenging place that you've shot? That's a really good question. Aside from indoor arenas, which can be a bit hellish at times, if they're not particularly well lit, probably one of the most challenging places that I've shot was Japan last summer, purely because there was so much going on. Like, there was so much buzz, there was so much atmosphere, the heat and humidity was relentless. Like, we'd walk out of the hotel from a nice air-conditioned hotel. It was really weird, actually. You'd go from a beautifully cool, crisp hotel room where everything was comfortable and perfect. You'd go down into the hotel lobby, and that was warm, but it was still relatively cool. And then as soon as you went outside, it was like stepping into an oven. So like working in those conditions was pretty hard. Like, you were constantly having to drink, just overwhelmed with everything that was going on. It was quite a challenging place to go, to be fair. So next question, how do you back up your photos? So I back up my photos, they go directly onto her external drive, so I keep nothing on my Mac at all. My MacBook Air does not have a big enough hard drive for me to deal with all of that kind of stuff. What I do is I catalogue different hard drives based on the year and the time of the year. So basically I'll fill one up, and then once that one's full, it will get kind of archived and kept away. And then I move on to the next one, and they're all labelled and stuff. What I will do after a race or an event or a shoot or whatever, I'll go through the cards, through Photo Mechanic, work out the shots that I want, and then pull those originals onto a hard drive, and it gets catalogued on that hard drive based on year and month and date and shoot and all that kind of stuff. And I'll link up my data workflow video and stuff in up here somewhere. I always make sure that I've got the originals of the really good stuff that I want to keep. However, what I then do sometimes is, depending on the event, depending on the race, depending on what it is, I'll do a full ingest of all of my images for that event. The reason I do that is because for some things, like World Series triathlon's a really, really good example. I will always do a full ingest of my cards at the end of each day when we're away, because sometimes, like, we'll go back later, like a few weeks, few months later, and I'll be asked, oh, have you got a picture of this? Or did you manage to get a picture of that? We need it for this press release or this piece of branding and stuff. So things like that, I always tend to keep a full ingest just in case. And the way I do that is by feel. So I know what kind of clients I need to kind of hang on to everything for. And I know the kind of clients where I can kind of let go of the stuff which I don't rate and they just want the good stuff. So it's kind of a mix. Everything gets backed up into the cloud for finished edited photos. That happens through Adobe Creative Cloud. So there's lots and lots of kind of like redundancy and stuff. But basically, take the winners, so to speak, off of the camera, off the cards, straight onto a hard drive, external drive. That external drive is based on the month and the year and stuff. And then the finished ones also go up onto the Creative Cloud. How long have you been a professional for? It was in quotes. And did you get there the way that you imagined? No, I didn't get there the way I imagined at all. I've been full-time pro for 3 years. Pretty much 3 years to the day, actually, is when I started the business. Exactly 3 years to the day this video drops. I'd kind of done paid stuff before that, so you could class as a paid amateur or a semi-pro, however you want to call it, but kind of full-time, in the business, professional, making money, no other job, etc., 3 years. Did I get here the way I imagined? No, because I didn't imagine myself to be at this point. I always thought I'd just be like a running photographer and stuff and do stuff in the UK and that'd be about it. Never thought I would do anything else particularly. Didn't think I'd travel around the world, didn't think I'd do netball, didn't think I'd shoot with lots of other kind of top level brands and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely didn't imagine it to be like this at all. It's very cool. How did you get into photography? So I got into photography, my uncle was a photographer, my mum always had a camera kicking around as well, so it was kind of always around. I then lost my job about 9-10 years ago, something like that, and literally a week later my uncle gave me one of his old cameras, and because I didn't have a lot to do while I was job hunting, I spent a lot of time taking photos, and kind of fell in love with it really after that. It was cool. How do you deal with, quotes again, special clients? Special meaning demanding, disrespectful or ungrateful. Demanding is never an issue for me particularly, because a demanding client is a client who knows what they want, and I often find that's a good thing. It's really important that when you start working with a new client that you kind of set the bar. That involves a lot of conversation, that involves a lot of kind of like toing and froing of what's expected from both sides. If you don't set those expectations for both sides, so if the client doesn't set the expectations for you and you don't set expectations of the client, they are always going to feel to you, even though they're not, they're going to feel to you like they're being very demanding. I would rather have a brief from a client that's 4 pages long than a vague brief from a client of, oh, just go out and take some photos, that then turns into afterwards, oh, well, you didn't get this shot for us and we really wanted a photo like that. Like, I would rather have a demanding client who's like, can we get this, 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 this and this, and then I know for a fact that I can kind of tick all those boxes, than have one complain later. So setting those expectations with clients early on is really, really important. I wouldn't say I've had particularly disrespectful clients. I've had problematic clients, but those clients I don't deal with again. So clients where it becomes a bit of a chore, or I don't feel like the vibe's there for both sides, then I don't work with them again. And kind of the same for ungrateful clients really. I've never had an ungrateful client, ever. Touch wood, really grateful for that. That's probably because I sound clients out quite well beforehand, before I start working with them. You know, you can pick up really quickly with clients when you're talking on the phone, when you meet them in person for the first time, when you talk to them on email, whether or not they're going to be a difficult client or an easy client to work with. And if I feel that they're going to be difficult or hard to work with, then I won't work with them. I'll kind of end the conversation there. There's a couple of times where I'll get an email saying, oh, can we, you know, it'd be great to chat about how we can work together and benefit each other and etc, etc. And then the way I usually kill that conversation off, because I always get the vibe that those people just want stuff for free, as I ask how much their budget is. That usually kills the conversation straight away and you can move on to a better client. So kind of demanding is a good thing, I think, in my mind. Disrespectful, ungrateful, never really had to deal with, but they wouldn't stay around for very much longer, to be fair. Instead of Adobe products to edit your photos, would you use any other editing apps? The problem with Adobe, Adobe's amazing, but it's expensive. So when you're first starting out, like, Adobe's a real difficult decision as to whether or not you go with it or not. There are lots of other things out on the market. I think there's like a Photoshop version called like Affinity or something, like that's meant to be very, very good. If you're into like video production and stuff, there's things like DaVinci Resolve, which is completely free. Like I've used GIMP, but like way before I ever really got into Adobe and Photoshop probably. Like I used to use GIMP, which is essentially just a free graphics editor and kind of free version of Photoshop. So there's lots of free alternatives out there. Just kind of do a Google for like free Photoshop alternatives or free Lightroom alternatives. Google will bring a whole bunch of stuff back. Would I ever use them? If I had to, but I'm fortunate enough that I have Creative Cloud, so I don't need to worry about it. Creative Cloud is amazing. That's all the questions. Thank you very much for sending questions in. If you did, I apologise for the ones that I didn't get to. I've just kind of like pulled out what I thought was kind of some nice ones to talk about. You can always ask me questions. I've gone through an awful lot of stuff on Instagram the last couple of weeks where looking at people's portfolios and stuff. So there's a whole lot of conversation I've already had. So if there's anything like that, feel free, just hit me up. I'm more than happy for that. If you haven't already, because there's about 50% of you, according to my analytics, that aren't subscribed, hit subscribe, because I will keep putting stuff out there and keep trying to be helpful. All the way through this coronavirus lockdown, I will do my best to help and support, and I've got some more kind of stuff planned. I've had a few people ask me recently as well for like the best advice that I will give for people starting out and wanting to go pro. I'm actually, as we speak this week, putting the final touches to a online video course that goes through exactly this. It's like how to start, where to get your clients from, all of that kind of stuff. So for those people asking, hold fire another few days, maybe another week, and fingers crossed, all being well, I'll get some stuff out there for you, and that's going to hopefully really, really help. And I basically have gone through all the things that I did when I first started that kind of have got me to where I've given you the best bits, and I've kind of told you some of the pitfalls as well. So hold fire for that. If you haven't already, hit me up on Instagram, because I do a lot of stuff over there, and it's always nice to have a bit of a follow, and kind of see what other people do. If you do follow me on Instagram from here, I do look at your stuff. I might not follow you back, but I definitely do look at your stuff. There's some really, really cool people who have followed along, who've got some really, really good photos. So keep cracking on. Enjoy the rest of your lockdown week. I hope we get out of this soon. I would very much like to get back to work. Stay safe, stay at home, follow advice, wash your goddamn hands, and we'll see you all again very soon.